Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com, and these are the market positions for March the 22nd, 2011. Now our first position for tonight or for tomorrow, depending on when you're looking at this, is going to be in the iShares North Korean IDX-EWY ETF. Now what I'm seeing here is some good opportunity, I think, setting up. We have our triple EMA cross. It hasn't gone off just yet, but we've got our 3-day crossing over our 8-day and 18-day predicted moving average. Now our key levels come in at 58.87, 58.69, and 59.15 with a close of 60.05. So with a close above all three of the Vantage Point predicted moving averages, that in itself is somewhat of a bullish sign. Now another thing I'm looking at is, again, this 3-day crossing over the 8-day and the 18-day predicted moving average. We have the predicted short, medium, and long-term differences are all turning positive. I also have the predicted MACD and the predicted true strength indicator crossing over the trigger in oversold territory. So everything here looks pretty good. Now going into our main crossovers, what we can see is we've got our short-term crossover here is crossed a few days ago. That looks good. Now our medium-term crossover is just crossing the trigger now. That's a pretty good sign. Now a little bit of a concern that I have is if I take my cursor here and I just draw this line right across here, you can see that there's a bit of resistance that's a little bit concerning to me, but because we had a very similar signal just about 2 weeks ago. So what I'd like to see is a return back into the 64 level. So there's still, if we can pick up even $2 or $3 a share, that's a pretty good trade, especially for a day trade. So what I want to point out here is now what we're going to do is we're going to look for an entry point. We've got our buy signal. We're now looking where can we get in on a slight pullback. So to help us with that, we're going to go in and have a look at the Vantage Point daily report. Now looking at this for tomorrow, we can see that we have a predicted low of 59.53 and 60.36 is going to be our high. Now looking at the Vantage Point software, we're just going to have a quick look and see what happened. Their predicted low and predicted high for today was 58.31 and 59.25. We can see that we didn't get that kind of a pullback. This is again a very bullish sign. We've moved up just about $1 here on the close. That's a pretty good. That's pretty bullish in my eyes. So we're looking for a very shallow dip. 59.53 is on the pullback is where we want to get in for a long position. But there's one other thing here. Now that we've identified our range tomorrow, we're going to be looking for making almost about like your intraday traders are going to be looking to make about $1 a share on this, but your medium-term traders, I think you should be looking at $2 to $4 a share on this one. But now what I want to do is I want to come back. We've identified the bottom at 59.53. Now I just want to look at those predicted moving averages one more time. Now looking at these predicted moving averages, our 3-day predicted moving average comes in at 59.15. So that could be considered also a key pivot area of tomorrow. So your more aggressive traders can go in around the 59.53. Your less aggressive traders, they can watch this 59.15 area. And of course, in this particular case, we want all stops below the 58.87 mark, and again, just to allow for the volatility, and we're still not out of the woods here with Libya, with Japan. So it's not a given that the equities are all just going to move up higher. So we want to be a little cautious here, and remember to have stops in place. Now our second trade for tomorrow is going to be in the Forex market. Specifically, we're going to go into the Australia-Canadian cross pair. Now I see a very similar situation setting up here. Aussie is clearly getting a boost from risk appetite with the equities making a turn, everything looking a little better there. Now again, with the cross pairs, these cross pairs are definitely more volatile than your US dollar based pairs, but I do see some potential opportunity. My view is that crude oil is probably different than most analysts' view. My view is that crude oil is going to start moving lower, not higher. I don't believe we have a war in Libya. I believe we have a very one-sided event here that is well contained. The risk of flow to oil is an issue, and that could strengthen the Canadian dollar. So that's what I want to point out here, what's going on, what it's correlated to. So looking at this, we can see that we're in heavily oversold territory. We're starting to turn up on our trigger, on our predicted true strength indicator, and our predicted MACD have ever so slightly crossed that trigger. Now, what I'm looking at in this particular case is I'm looking at the short-term crossover from Vantage Point. It's crossed to the upside, but I also want to point out that the medium term has not. Now, when we're looking at this with the triple EMA cross, we want to again look at those pivot points, 98.24 on the 18-day, 97.93, and 98.01 on the 3-day, and we've closed at 98.46, so we've closed above all three of the Vantage Point predicted moving averages. So we can see that support is building down in this area between 98.01 and 97.93, so that would be a natural place for me to look for my entry point on a slight retracement. We're going to have Canadian retail sales out in the morning. I think they'll be moderately supportive to the Canadian dollar, but I don't think we're still in a carry trade here. Now, if we can get into the Aussie CAD at a ground level type of trade and hold this thing, we can also make money on the daily interest by holding that position. The broker has to pay us swap every day, so very important to point that out. That's why not just me, but the entire market would like the long trade here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into that daily report from Vantage Point and see if it agrees kind of with what I'm saying, and it does. 97.89, 98.83 for the high. This will be the second day in a row for the Neural Index. That's a positive sign, so we've had a number of down days. This would be going into our third up day. So, but again, I can't stress enough that we're relying on risk aversion, we're relying on the equities to stabilize, and we want to see crude oil moving a little bit lower. That's the fundamental that I can put into this trade for you, that you want to watch crude oil very closely. If it starts breaking over $104, $105, $106 a barrel, Aussie CAD's going to come under downward pressure very, very quickly, because that will indirectly strengthen the Canadian dollar, which would put pressure on this trade. So everything else here, we can see the predicted short-term difference is breaking above the zero line. The predicted medium and long-term are both pointing up, and again, we've got our trigger crossing on the predicted MACD and the predicted true strength indicator. So we're trying to get into this trade early. We're using the shorter term crossovers. We're expecting volatility, but we can also see a bit of a base forming here. Now, another thing I like to use here from Vantage Point is the predicted high and low, and put it right on my chart. We can see that we've had a clear break of the Vantage Point predicted high, and today you can see this candle came nowhere near the bottom of the predicted range. So this is what I would call a predicted high-low break, and it's to the upside. So everything looks good. We've got a little bit of resistance up here. If we can break through the 99 level, then that's going to take us back up well over the parity mark here. And it's perfectly normal to clarify that if Aussie US can hold above parity, Aussie CAD will also push above parity. There's a very high correlation between Aussie US and Australia CAD. Very, very high correlation. So don't forget that because it's important. So those are the market positions for March the 22nd, 2011. And again, my name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com.